welcome to Channel 23, a program on Channel 23 that we call The Faces of Carlsbad, and we're sponsored by Intrepid Potash, and we're here at the beautiful Carlsbad Foundation building. And they always treat us very well down here. Anyway, this is a program, if you've never watched Channel 23's Faces of Carlsbad, this is a program in which we introduce you to people you might know, people that you've never met before, people that you've forgotten about. And today, I have a very nice gentleman I'm going to welcome, Scott Tindall. Scott,
how you doing, Bob?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I
hope you're not nervous. You know, we get some people on here who are very nervous to be in front of a camera, but you look like you're going to handle this beautifully.
I don't have any problems with nerves being in front of the camera. So.
Oh, that's good. Well, let's go. What we do on this show, Scott, is to take you back into time and space to your grandparents, where they came from, where they were born, and then your parents, and then we'll eventually get to you.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about your grandparents on both sides. Where did they originate from?
Well, historically, we have family members that come back from Germany and England. Mm-hmm. And we do have a little bit of Indian in the family, very, very far back. But the best we can recall off the top of my head is that both families are from Arizona originally. The grandparents moved into Arizona in the early 1900s, as best as I remember. Mm-hmm. But we have one side, my father's side, is mining background, copper mining, back in Arizona, back where that's a big commodity over there.
Yes.
And he was there in Globe in Miami, Arizona for many years, where my father was a little kid and mining copper.
What town in Arizona, do you remember?
Well, they ended up in Tucson, mm-hmm. where my grandparents finally passed on was in Tucson, but there was a copper mine out there. But the big copper mine when my father was a kid was Miami, Arizona,
yes,
Globe, Arizona, that area.
I see.
And of course, Miami is a little tiny town that surrounds a gigantic crater.
Is that right?
Yeah, they dig up the mountainside, and then the little town just kind of exists around the mine.
Wow.
I've been through there once just to see where my father grew up as a kid. Mm-hmm. But
were you impressed?
Oh, very much so. They were reopening the mine when the copper started going up again. It had been closed for over 30 years.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah, so they're reopening the mine right now because copper was so big. Well, I guess that would have been 5 years ago. It's probably very well open, and production is very big over there now, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, my mother's side of the family was also in Tucson, and they were ranchers over there. They had I guess a good-sized ranch back then for people that were just trying to make a living in Arizona. And unfortunately, my grandparents passed away very early when I was a very young person. I didn't get to meet many of them.
Yeah, that same thing happened to me on my mother's side. I never met my grandparents at all.
Yep. Yeah, I never really met either of my grandfathers. Both of them had passed on when I was one of them passed on when I was 3, and one passed on before I even existed.
Yeah.
But the grandmothers I met, and the last one passed on when I was probably about 10 years old or 8. But all the families from Arizona, my mother and father married, and my father moved out here to Carlsbad because of Duval, who owned a copper mine outside of Tucson. Mm-hmm. And they had purchased the sulfur mine, now not in operation, that was Pennzoil sulfur here for such a long time.
Yeah.
But Duval had bought it, and he had moved his job down here to go to work for the sulfur mine. Mm-hmm. And had been there for over 20 years with Pennzoil, and then finally ending with Freeport-McMoran, buying the company and selling it off later. Mm-hmm. So,
is it still in existence in this area?
Sulfur out there, they dismantled everything.
Everything.
From what I understand, the train even came out and took the spur out. They even took their rails back.
Oh my goodness.
So as far as I know, the only thing that's left out there is some framework, a couple of buildings that are probably rotten, and the road has probably already been recaptured by nature. It's been over close to a decade now since they closed it.
And the spirits are the only things that exist.
And sinkholes.
And sinkholes.
And sinkholes.
Oh yeah, right.
we probably have a small valley out there that's got some man-made dents in it now.
Yeah.
Give it enough time, and they'll all kind of collapse over time. But yeah, it's still there, and from what I understand, there's still a lot of sulfur out there.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
So that's, in the future they could go out there and reopen it. In my lifetime, I might even see that if sulfur becomes, price goes up.
What do they utilize sulfur for mostly? Do you know?
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer.
Yeah, inks, pens,
Oh.
chemicals. Really, that's a big thing. Is it's an additive to so many other things, like even gunpowder. You have a lot of sulfur that's used in a lot of different products.
Yeah.
But you can't compete with Canada or Russia strip mining and selling it out there, for dollars on the ton.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're out here trying to, having to drill to get to it.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So they didn't strip mine out there. They actually had a very clean process of drilling and inserting hot water in the ground to melt it and suck it back up, rather than strip mining the land.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
The land was very little damage was done to the land. Kind of like the oil field goes and builds a pad every once in a while. So it was.
So where were you and your you had James as one of your brothers? Did you have any other brothers?
I have another one, Robert.
Robert.
Yeah, the family is split apart. James is in Albuquerque, and Robert's in Alaska.
In Alaska.
Yeah, he works up there for one of the oil companies. He does pipeline regulatory. Make sure that everything's done proper for the government for one of the oil companies up there. He was working on the northern shore of Alaska above the Arctic Circle for about 2 years, the last couple of years.
How did he react to that? Did he tell you anything about it?
This guy loves it. He was in the military and went to Kuwait, and then he went back to Iraq as a contractor later on and spent 7 years or 6 years in Iraq working as a private contractor.
And the heat was very, very
and
high.
when that contract ended, he went and took another contract in Alaska. So he jumped from 115-degree weather to -70. So this guy's kind of he's an adrenaline junkie. He loves that kind of stuff.
I'll be darned. Did you have any sisters?
So, Melanie.
Melanie.
Yes. Melanie's here in Carlsbad. She's I guess the assistant manager at Lowe's for the last couple of years since they opened.
Oh, great.
She's been in retail for a long time, but she's got children here in town, and they're growing up. So, we have the next generation of Tindalls coming in to Carlsbad.
Well, that's nice, though.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about your personal family. Are you married or are you bachelor?
I'm married.
You're married?
Yes, I've been married for just over a year now to my wife, Phoenix, and we're expecting our first here this coming year.
Well,
first
that's
child.
wonderful. I got a kick out of this. You're married to a woman whose first name is Phoenix.
Yes.
And you came from Arizona.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
I was born in Tucson.
In Tucson. Huh?
That's right.
Oh, did you ever get into a discussion with your wife over that name?
Not really, no. I didn't find it, I love the name Phoenix, don't get me wrong. I think it's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
But it's one of those conversation pieces other people start usually.
Yeah, well, like me, I can't resist something like that.
Some people find it just entertaining that she has the name Phoenix, so they always bring it up usually once in a while. It's not a common name, but...
No, it isn't, but it's a nice name.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You graduated, did you go through school here in the Carlsbad system? Or?
I did graduate high school here. I was here from a little kid, so I was here elementary, junior high, back when Eisenhower was still,
Yes,
Carlsbad
right.
school systems.
Yeah.
And graduated high school here, and I left here and went to St. Louis and went to college at Sanford Brown College in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
And studied IT, information technology over there for a couple of years. And started my career in computers basically out there. I actually got a job with Western Commerce here after high school. I was actually in college here at New Mexico State going through the welding program. And I took a summer job and hated it. I didn't want to weld in the heat here in Carlsbad, so I moved on and went into computers. I got a job at Western Commerce, decided I liked computers, so I found a college, and moved up to St. Louis where a couple of friends of mine were living.
I see.
And went to college up there for a couple of years.
And computers, you're really involved in computers, you know, and I don't even mess with them.
Well, you know, when you think of computers nowadays, when I was in school, they really were getting big. We had everyone talking about Yahoo and AOL, and everything else was just huge. And when I was in school, we actually had that recession, the bubble, the dot-com bubble burst.
I remember that.
Young kids won't remember that, but we all did, because just billions of dollars disappeared in technology stocks almost overnight. And I actually entered into a field, IT, which was big, very big. But as soon as the dot-com bubble burst, I'm in college for a degree that suddenly became worthless.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
overnight.
Oh,
no one
my.
needed IT anymore. There were millions of guys out there with these certifications, and everyone was getting rid of people. So you had a lot of very intelligent men and women being kicked out of jobs, losing their jobs overnight.
Now, the IT stands for what again?
Information technology.
Information technology.
It's really the study of communication between electronic devices.
I see.
Easiest way to say it. Anything that's electronic that talks to something else that's electronic has to have a way to do it. And IT people are there to sort of make that happen. That's kind of their job.
You would have thought that that would have been a good job with the technology we had.
It was going to be a great job. It was expected to have a lot of growth back when I went to college, but no one could predict that so many companies would have gone out of business so quickly.
My goodness.
They all just kind of, I guess, had quite a few problems with a lot of investment and some people just not coming back, so it all kind of fell apart back then.
And then what happened to Scott after that?
Scott actually got an opportunity. His brother-in-law at the time, Mr. Eric Luna, was working in Arizona for a guy who did legal technology consulting, where they were doing evidence preparation for courtrooms and then going into the courtroom and helping lawyers present evidence in court.
Oh, wow.
And we used technology to do this. We used laptops and projectors and new software that allowed us to do things that you just never really thought of. This was, of course, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, we were digitizing and scanning millions of documents, pages of documents into a laptop, going into the courtroom and being able to pull this stuff up and put it on a screen and do live annotations on it.
Wow.
So we were able to blow up paragraphs and highlight as the lawyer's reading, and we could very quickly go through and display evidence and help them get through a lot of material quickly, instead of, if you imagine 20 people in the courtroom trying to flip through the pages and we have to wait for everyone to find the page.
Yeah, right.
Okay, now paragraph 2, it takes forever for those old school ways of doing things sometimes. And the best part about the job, honestly, was I got to travel a lot. And I got to meet a lot of cool people. I got to work for companies like Chrysler and BMW and meet guys like Jürgen Schrimp, CEO of Daimler Chrysler.
Oh my gosh.
And these guys were involved in court cases that were billions of dollars. Kurt Kerkorian was suing Daimler Chrysler. And this was many years ago in Wilmington, Delaware, that I got to go work on this trial. And I was just a little peon doing the little work, but it was a cool thing to see.
Well, you must have been involved with so many exciting things that the average person doesn't even think about.
My first trial was Enron. I worked for the insurance companies that had issued surety bonds to Enron.
Oh dear.
That was my first trial that I ever worked on as an assistant.
Oh my.
And my first arbitration that I ever worked on was for mold remediation when the mold scare started hitting the United States.
Right. Yes.
Everyone started crying about mold in the buildings, and it was a very serious issue for a while, and now we kind of got laws in place for that now. So I mean, I kind of got to see some of the stuff from a courtroom perspective, patents that were being sued on for things that were just such a simple procedure, like pasteurizing egg yolks for McDonald's.
Oh my. Oh wow.
You didn't think anything of it, but you
No.
turn around and think about it, it's a $250 million lawsuit, for something so simple.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I did that for about 6 years. I did that job where you just flew to a trial and worked the trial, and then you'd come home and enjoy life for a couple months and not do much. And you'd go do another trial.
How long, and then how many years ago did you decide to go into something a little different in style?
I'd say probably 2006.
Mm-hmm.
I decided that I had kind of had enough of the traveling. It was fun for a while, but after a while it kind of got a little bit tedious. I wanted to kind of stay at home and not travel so much.
You probably got to see quite a few of our states, though, correct?
I've been to probably half the United States doing that job. They sent me to New York, San Francisco, Atlanta, Chicago. The big thing about it was that I got to spend months inside of those cities when I went there. So Eric and me worked at a trial where he and I were staying in the same hotel room for 3.5 months.
Wow.
Down in the Wall Street district of New York. We were staying at the Holiday Inn Express on, I think it's Gold Street in New York City. And we worked out of the Chrysler building for I think it was about 4 weeks. And then we worked out of the Grace building for about 8 weeks. And got to be in New York for those months and live off of the hotel and everything and just kind of enjoy whenever we weren't working 14 and 16-hour days.
Oh my gosh.
You know, we got to actually go out and see a little bit of New York. And then it was like that for many of the cities.
Did you visit Little Italy and Chinatown? And
I didn't get a chance to do Chinatown or Little Italy. Unfortunately, the biggest thing for me, I kept trying to do it and I failed over and over. I kept trying to get to the Statue of Liberty, but this was a year after 9/11.
Yeah.
And so the statue was still closed at that time. And I tried to go down to the aircraft carrier, and I did get to see that one. But I did get to see Ground Zero back when they were still cleaning it up, only a year after the terrorist attack.
Oh my goodness.
And that was only I think like 12 blocks away from me or so, from where I was staying. So I got to go down there a couple of times and walk around the perimeter and get to see that.
Did you get to South Street Seaport area at all?
No, but I did end up in Queens one day when I tried to use the subway.
Well, that happens, doesn't
in
it?
Brooklyn, and I got lost for about 4 or 5 hours in New York one day. We were exploring with one of our teammates that was from another company, and he knew the way to get home. And of course, when we were on the subway and we realized that we were on a bridge, everyone started looking at each other. We're not on the island anymore, guys.
No, I had my great aunt and uncle. They lived in the Bronx for a number of years, and I've been to the Bronx. And then when I was in the military, I went up and watched the Brooklyn Dodgers play in Brooklyn. So I've been to Brooklyn. And in Manhattan, you mentioned the Chrysler Building.
Yep.
That's one of the two most beautiful buildings in New York. The Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building were just gorgeous buildings.
I am truly thankful that I got to see the Chrysler Building.
Yeah.
It was a surprise to me when they told me that we were going to move from the Grace Building and go to the Chrysler. I really didn't understand what it was at the time because I didn't put a lot of thought into the history of New York. But I walked into the lobby, and the lobby, there was a rope 6 feet in the door to keep people out. Wow. And when I walked in, I had to show a pass to get passed into the lobby. And as soon as I walked in, this whole lobby is just gold leaf, tile work, intricate little tile work, gold banisters, and just extremely ornate. They definitely made this lobby to impress anyone that walked in the building back when they built it. And it was the first couple of times I got in there, I just kind of stopped in the lobby and looked around, and just awestruck by the architecture, which we really don't get to see around this part of the United States.
No, not at all.
It's just not quite the same.
But they had a rope to stop just anybody coming in. It just had to be somebody who was working.
They had a security guard that was monitoring the rope and the doors. If you didn't work in the building, you were only allowed to come in 6 feet, take pictures, look, and then leave.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they only allowed so many people in there because they only had this little 10-foot space there in front of the oscillating door, the little round door.
Yeah, right.
That was it. That's all you could do, is come in and take a picture and leave, take a look at it.
So you were one of the privileged individuals.
Yeah, we had to show our badge every time we came in, but yeah, we got to go in and check the whole lobby out and go up. I think we're on the 38th or 34th floor up there, and you know, the Grace Building, we're on like floor 56, 58, something like that. And that overlooks Central Park.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, but yeah, the job was really great. I got to go to some of the cities like San Francisco and LA, and when you work those trials, sometimes you didn't get to see the city. You really didn't. San Francisco, I only had 2 days in which I wasn't working. So.
Oh, you missed a beautiful city.
I did get to go to Ghirardelli Square, and I had to go ride one of the trolleys over there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Chicago, the Sears Tower. I worked on like the 80-something floor of the Sears Tower.
Wow.
And I stayed there for like 3 months. Got to see a World Series playoff game down there. So you got a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I lived in the north side of Chicago for a while, and I always went to the Chicago Cubs games at Wrigley Field on the north side. I was a Cub follower, very, very diligent. But the White Sox too far south for me in the south side, and I didn't want to go down there.
We had a contest at our office. One of the other guys and me, we had a picture he had made of all the games, or excuse me, all the stadiums and all the arenas for hockey and for basketball and football and baseball. And everything was grayed out on the list on this big picture, and we had one in each of our offices. And what we did is we went to go to a trial, and we would be in Chicago, so we'd try and go watch a game at Wrigley Field. And then when we came home, we'd mark that off the list.
Oh.
And so Yankee Stadium, Atlanta Braves, their stadium over in Atlanta, Minnesota Twins.
Oh yes.
San Francisco Giants. We probably got about 50% of baseball. Basketball, I've been able to go see a game of basketball in Minneapolis and New York City at the Garden.
Wow.
And football, been to like St. Louis Rams, of course, Vikings, Cardinals. So we try to get out and make each trip, find something to do.
Yeah.
And so we found that was a very good thing, because usually there was always someone playing. One of the seasons would be going on.
Do you ever get to Cleveland?
No, I never been to Cleveland.
You didn't miss much now, because no, I love Cleveland. Don't get me wrong. My mother was born there, but the teams haven't been too good lately.
Well, I don't have a problem with underdogs.
Oh,
Most of my teams are underdogs.
Underdogs, okay.
So, I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan, and so I'm not used to playoffs and Super Bowls.
Oh, okay. Well, let me ask you a question. What do you do in your spare time? Do you have much spare time?
Well, when I first moved back to Carlsbad, I got into martial arts here. I was studying with Richard Granger, elite Taekwondo, for 6-7 years.
Wow.
I injured my knee doing martial arts and tore my ACL, and I got chondromyalgia on the other knee. So I have a lot of pain in my knees right now, and I need surgery on both of them. But owning your own business doesn't allow a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, what do you do now? That's a good question.
Actually, I started a company 5 years ago for doing small business computers. The goal is to start doing low voltage installations, wiring, which is kind of a specialty that I trained. I did IT. I did data communications is what I trained in college. And so I started getting back into this. And what it is there's New Mexico has a ton of codes, a ton of laws for putting wiring in a building. And to do it right takes a lot of foresight and planning to get these types of jobs done to where they'll meet all the specifications and requirements of the customers. And so I got into this, and I do small business support for computers. I build networks, though, primarily. Rewiring buildings and putting servers in place and helping people integrate their systems together. And I found out years ago that Carlsbad had some people that were doing a good job here. some that were doing decent, some that were doing not so decent. But the guys that were doing good jobs, they were all busy. They were full. They were working as much as they could work.
Yeah.
So I went into business for myself and found my own clients and started doing that kind of work. And now we're an electrical contractor as well, because the state of New Mexico required us to have a journeyman's license to do it.
Oh my gosh.
So we went out and we got our licenses, of course. We worked with other people for years and years until we had enough time, and we went out and got our own license, and now we're doing it ourselves.
Yeah. And what's the company called now?
The company was actually a joke.
Oh, a joke.
The name is Simeon Support.
Simeon Support.
And if you are familiar with the word Simeon, it's the higher intelligent apes. It's the name for higher intelligent ape.
Oh, well, that's a good name for a company.
So there was a joke when I was in school that if you pulled wire, you were a cable monkey. So I made the joke that Simeon Support is, we're here to help you pull your cables, kind of be a cable monkey. So we named it Simeon Support, and we of course have a DBA that's Simeon Electrical, just to help people know that we do electrical work too.
Well, as we come to the end of the interview, Scott, I want you to tell James that I send my best wishes and I want him to take care of himself. What does your wife do, by the way, before we go off? Is she just a homebody?
No, she actually works at Albertsons right now.
Oh, I see, okay.
And she's doing her best to take care of herself because she's got a little one on the way.
Yeah,
so.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
When's the baby due?
We don't know exactly. We just found out. We haven't had the first doctor's appointment, but I'd guess September.
September?
Yeah, about September.
Well, that's a good month.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's when my wife was born.
I was born in September. What date was she born? Do you remember?
21st, yeah.
Oh, I was on the 4th. I beat her to the punch. Well, Scott, I want to thank you for being our guest today. It's been a real pleasure.
Appreciate it.
And you take good care of yourself. And you have a partner here with you today. His name is Ryan, right?
That's correct, yes.
And he's a pretty good worker, isn't he?
Ryan's the best. I never get any complaints from that guy. He wants to learn.
He's terrific.
He's the best. You better stay around. I'll have to treat him right.
Okay.
Make sure he doesn't
All right.
want to leave.
I'll pat him on the back. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Channel 23, all I can say is goodbye and good luck. And